Welcome to another episode of the CLV Revolution. I'm today with Tim Kilroy and we'll talk about Chapter 4. Let me tell you a few things about Tim first. Tim is an amazing and seasoned expert in the retail game and pretty funny too. He used to be a store manager in the 90s. Then he ran marketing at Karmaloop and Wayfair to most recently start coaching e-commerce agencies and running his e-commerce focused agency called Ecom Allies. In this episode, we talked about Chapter 4, the one that's focusing on knowing your customers thanks to the RFM segmentation. Stick around to understand how to leverage the power of RFM segmentation, to find out what's the hidden agenda of businesses, the ideal customer trap, and how can a unified and data-driven approach break down the silos in your organization. So, Tim, thanks a lot for joining me. We are chatting about Chapter 4, Know Your Customers. Thanks for joining me, man.
I'm super excited to be here. The book is awesome. I don't know if I have it right here. It makes me happy. It's chock full of great information, and I think the most remarkable thing about the book's goal into such manageable, thoughtful exercises that allow this complex psychological and mechanical event to occur.
Yeah. Well, what can I say? Music to my ears. I've been working like 17 years in e-commerce and retail and struggled for 18 months to compress everything into a let's say digestible form for people willing to improve customer lifetime value. So, Tim, what do you think about the Chapter 4? So basically, we are now at the step where we are focusing on knowing your customers. We are focusing on RFM segmentation. In the first chapter, I talked with Michael Schrake from the author of Who Do You Want Your Customers to Become? And he pinpointed something amazing, which is that many companies are focusing on the money that they will get. So when the executives are being asked, who do you want your customers to become? They say, well, people that buy more from us. And so basically, we talked about customer journey and company journey, and the fact that in an ideal world or in a humane world, companies should be focusing not on squeezing more dollars out of their customers, but to help their customers transform, progress, make better things happen in their lives. But RFM is a way to look at how valuable are the customers. So what's your take on that? And by the way, what do you think about RFM in general?
So first, I think let me say this. First, marketers ruin everything, right? So we've turned this building of a relationship into a cost of customer acquisition versus lifetime value. Like that's not that's the output, right? So by focusing just on the output, we've lost what we're trying to do during this customer relationship development period. And so the primary goal of every business should be to effectively understand who their clients are, what they want, what they need, and if you have a product or service that actually changes their trajectory, what is the destination you're leading them towards? And that's kind of like the primary thing that every brand and marketer ought to be focused on first. And then when we get into the mechanics of it, like using RFM to identify those customers who are generating the most benefit for us for the benefit we give, I think that's the great thing about RFM is it's a fact, right? It's not opinion. It's not 10% off is performs, or I think saying 10% off is going to be better than save 10%. Like the RFM is a fact. It is a representative of actual behavior. So that does give you a basis to make decisions on. And I think that is the most important piece, because if the if the best representatives in your RFM cohort, if they become more valuable over time, that is actually believe it, it's sadly it's a lagging indicator that your marketing and messaging is on the right track.
Indeed, it's a lagging indicator. And also, what I would like to to note about chapter 4 is that uh, RFM is just, let's say, a starting point. It should be just a starting point for large organizations. For smaller organizations, smaller in the sense of mid-sized, because they do need enough customers to apply RFM. It can be a good enough starting point so that they can understand their customer base, because I think the sin of many marketers and siloed organizations is around the fact that they don't understand that they have these thousands of relationships with thousands of customers that are at various degrees of, let's say, uh,
Affinity, right?
affinity, exactly, with their company, with their products. And unless they understand who are their best, or who they are former best, and which are the things that they need to fix, because e-commerce is not done, right? It's work
No,
in progress.
right. It's never done. And I think the power in thinking about understanding who your customers are really comes from allowing you to have like a modulated voice. you know um uh I have 5 kids, and
You're a
the
hero.
no,
2.5 times more than me.
I'm just tired. That's what I am. um
Yeah.
but my oldest son is 20, and my youngest twins are 14. And so I don't speak to them in the same way. I understand my son who's 20 has done a lot more stuff. He's lived at college for a couple of years. Like, he's had a job. He can do all this stuff that my 14-year-olds haven't experienced yet. So, because I know my audience, the person that I'm speaking to, I adjust what I'm saying to them so that it has the most context. Just like, if I know who my most valuable customers are, I might give them a slightly different message than the people who are my newest customers, the high recency folks who might be low money. So I don't know what kind of relationship we're going to have, but I really do need to be pulling out all the stops to be charming and engaging, because they're brand new. Like, I want to impress them. And so I think the real power, it allows you to do some I'm gonna make up some terms here, like some faux personalization at scale. You know, what you're trying to do, what segmentation and and RFM calculations really provide you with, is it's sort of a waypoint of where they are in their relation, where the customer is in relationship to you. So if you know that people are in the early stages of the relationship with you, you can be charming and funny. If they're sort of in the mid stages of the relationship, you can talk more about your shared experience. Like, we know that customers who have purchased these items really love getting those items and they're really happy about it. Here's a bunch of testimonials. Or if they're towards the end of the relationship, like they've stopped opening your emails or whatever, you can sort of make that last ditch effort to win them back by saying, "Hey, we met you. You know what? I know that I haven't handled this relationship as well as you would want, or maybe you started to change, or I've started to change. I don't know, but I still love you." And so I think that is really the power of RFM, because it gives you the best look at an approximation of where your audience is in relationship to their love affair with you. or their like affair or their toleration of you.
Yeah, indeed, that's one of the main things that you could do with RFM. And another aspect that when I've discovered RFM, to tell you the backstory. So I was working with a company which was selling, let's say, fashion products. They were doubling in size, and they couldn't make it anymore. So basically, their retention rate was plummeting, and I understood that unless I look granularly at various clusters of customers, I can't understand why that is happening. Putting the customer experience layer on top of it, so basically you have RFM segments and you have certain feedback from those RFM
Right.
segments. So
Through their
with these type of lenses, I've managed to understand what kind of hole they've got themselves into.
yeah, and I think the real, as I said before, the real power of this is this kind of RFM analysis. It's fact. It isn't supposition. Like, oh, I think it's I think it's because there's more competition, or because the news cycle is happening, or whatever. It pushes all of the guesses aside, and it says these are your best customers, or these are your worst customers. And that allows you to then investigate their experience and the feedback that you're getting from that audience to be able to say, like, oh, got it. My worst customers feel this way, or my best customers experience this. And that way you can take the learnings from those particular segments and start to apply those learnings to other segments so that you can increase the value of your customer experience. And I think that's the real power, because you get this snapshot of what is the behavior, what is the behavior of a good customer? How
Yeah,
does that differ from the behavior of a bad customer? And if I have feedback where I can really take an element that all of my good customers share, I can then either try to apply that element, that behavioral element, to a lower performing segment, or I can take that or and apply it to my acquisition so that I'm attracting more of the people who are likely to be higher value customers. And so what is really, really terrific about it is that it's not opinion, and marketers, I think, in fact, could be the worst, because so many marketers are fact averse.
yeah.
They
Well,
they really want to think about fluffy things like brand, and even and for most marketers, when they say, like, the customer journey and all that sort of stuff, they don't really apply that to any data. They have this vision in their head of somebody getting their email and be like, oh my goodness, they like me, they really, really like me, they sent me an email. That none of that ever happens. And so, RFM just gives you this this real snapshot that says this segment of people are performing the actions that you desire,
yeah.
and it
Oh,
gives you the framework to say, like, okay, these other people aren't performing the actions that we desire. What's the difference between these two?
yeah.
And it limits the of number of avenues of investigation. So it makes your world smaller, more concrete, and frankly, significantly more manageable. And from the marketer perspective, sadly, it makes you way more accountable.
Yeah, because you can't escape the truth of I don't know, your how many of your customers are ex-lovers, and how many of
Exactly.
them
Exactly.
are,
And,
are high potential.
And you can't say things like, you know what?
Our brand affinity.
Right. Or well, actually, you can't say things like, I think we should change the logo. Or you know what? I think we've got to change the colors because it's the colors that's changing the experience. Well, if it were the colors that were determinative, that would be universal because everybody has the same colors.
Yeah.
Right. And so like you can eliminate rabbit holes by just looking at the data.
Yeah.
And it's really magical.
Tim, one thing that caught my attention was that, and I haven't put this anecdote in the book. So I wasted a lot of money into it was, I think, JSK or JFK, something like that, a research company. So I've paid a lot of money for them to, because I've heard this thing about buyer persona. It was basically back in 2008 or 9.
Yeah.
And I paid them a lot of money to invent a character, and then they've said you've got Lisa here, which is doing this and that, and then you have Tim, which is doing that and the other, and he has 2 twins which are 14 years old, and he's tired, he's not a hero, whatever. So basically, I've seen how not to do this, because at the end of the day, there was nothing that I could be doing with that. So I've just paid a lot of money to hear about some inventions which are not applicable. So what do I do now with these fictional characters that have some names on them, and we know a few traits of those customers? Whilst with RFM, you can actually look at your best customers. You can understand, if you analyze them properly, and I do this in the next chapters, of course. If you analyze them properly, if you understand their demographics, if you understand their reasoning behind being a loyal customers or stopping being to be a loyal customer. So once you understand that, then you know who are your best customers. And I think that's also a very impactful thing with the RFM. And another thing that comes to mind is that is not let's say done. Like, once you've got this, you should be focusing only on the ideal customers, because that's a thing that I've done already and it's not working. So you need to pay your let's say fixed costs as well. So sometimes, even though you're not that profitable, you need customers. Even though they are not amazingly profitable, you just need to cover your costs. So you need that kind of revenue, and God help to have enough ideal customers that make you way profitable. So basically, the advertising efforts shouldn't be narrowed only towards your ideal customers, only towards who are the soulmates, because at the end of the day, you need a healthy mix of customers. However, with the RFM, you can understand who are your best ones in your ICP, your ideal customer profile, and tweak the messaging and try out different kind of advertising methods to see if you have customers with a higher potential than the average ones.
Right. The other thing that's really great about understanding who your highest value customers are is you likely have more freedom with them. Like, they've already shown that they love you. So if you want to take a test, if you want to try something out, that's a good audience to try stuff out on, because
Yeah.
they like you already. They're predisposed to thinking that you're okay. Whereas if you were trying to try something brand new with a customer who has no context about who you are, that's really hard, because they don't know that it's new or different. And so, like, doing small tests inside of your most valuable segment can really, if you get a tweak in performance there, suddenly you're onto something, because you found something that your most valuable audience reacts to. Let's imagine it's a new bundle, or it's it's a new product, or a new way to position a product, whatever. If you find that there's a performance change in that audience, well, you know that the high value people that are out in the world who are not yet part of your customer audience, but they're part of your potential audience, you know that they're going to react to it as well. And so you can use that high value RFM segment to just try out maybe even your boldest ideas before you let them loose on the world, because you have a lot of credibility, and and frankly, that audience is more likely to forgive you than anyone else.
Yeah, that's indeed another let's say perk of applying RFM. Tim, I want to ask you, what was a thing that you haven't knew, if it was anything, while reading my book? So after reading my book, not only from chapter 4,
Yeah,
from
so I think the things that the so I've been in the game a long time too. I started in 1997, so like we're both old, and we remember when the internet was written on paper. Um, so I think the thing that really stuck out for me, and I alluded to this earlier, is that this like these are not exercises that happen in order to get to a single point of data. This is an ecosystem of exercises and thoughts that you apply across your business. And it's in this age where agencies are specialized, and you might, if you're a larger company, you might have somebody in your company who's the head of search, and somebody who's the head of
yeah,
of whatever SEO, and you'd have
whatever. Yeah,
these people who have different primary focal points. Well, by leveraging this sort of construct, it removes all those silos, or it forces all those silos to feed into the same knowledge machine. And I think that's really important. I think that's one of the fact that that silos don't really exist, and that the same sort of thinking, the same sort of identification of quality customers and customers who are more transactional, that can happen across every channel, and every channel can leverage these same ideas and concepts in order to create the best possible performance from their methodology, from their method of engagement. And I think that's really powerful, because it is both in it is an internal way of thinking, but it's a way of adjusting your company culture so everybody is thinking about data in a similar fashion.
excellent. Yeah, I totally relate to that, and I think this. I don't know. My vision for the future is that there will be few companies that will exist and thrive in the future without having this, let's say, consciously orchestrated customer journey, where the different departments with various KPIs are actually aligned towards customer lifetime value and towards helping their customers make progress. So I think it's even though that's going to take years, I think this is going to be happening. So let's
And,
see.
and also, I think that what's really important to think about is that this is something that can start at the very beginning of your journey. So obviously, you cannot execute all of these strategies when you have 10 customers, right? That doesn't.
Yeah,
But if you are putting into place, like, okay, when we have enough customers, I'm going to segment them so I know who's more valuable and who's less valuable. Like, you can start that thinking on day one, which is really powerful, because there are brands. I'm working with a brand right now that is growing dramatically. They've gone from sale number one to this at this point, like I'm they're going to be they're on a $2 million run rate off of a single product. Now they're introducing a bunch of other products, but it's easier to start this idea of segmentation at the beginning than it is to think about it when you're trying to do a bunch of other stuff. So if you build it with this in mind, or if
Yeah,
or if your next marketing hire, you have to say, like, this is what we're implementing. This is now a core part of your job. I think that's a really powerful accelerant for businesses, because it just gives them more information and it gives them more facts so that there's fewer opinionated guesses.
yeah, that's right. So, Tim, thanks a lot for joining me. My last question for you, my last two questions for you, basically. First, any last thoughts, any last things that you want to share with our audience today? And of course, where can people find more about you, where they can stay in touch with you?
So the last thought is to remember that all customers are valuable, not just your most valuable customers. That's one thing to remember. Every transaction matters. So that's really important. And if you want to find me, timkilroy.com, that's my agency coaching, and ecomallies.com, you can find e-commerce marketing services.
Super. Then, Tim, again, thanks a lot for joining me in the CLV Revolution. And for you out there, we'll see each other when we will chat about chapter 5.